All right, this is an interesting one. Let me know what you think in the comments because there's a few different angles and undercurrents here. But we have a popular hike in Southern California called the Bridge to Nowhere. It's this beautiful bridge across a gorge in the middle of Angeles National Forest. It was going to be part of a road that never got built. It's a very popular hike. Now, it's also in the middle of a massive burn area from the bridge fire, and it is closed to the general public right now because of the Forest Service closure order. So I can't just show up there and hike to the bridge or anywhere around there because it's all in the closure order. Now, the bridge itself is actually private property. It's owned by the bungee jumping company that does bungee jumps off there. And they've owned it. They bought it, I think, from an original mining claim that was there from maybe the 1890s. But that's private property, 50 acres around it, private property. And they have a permit that allows them access to the bridge. And right now, if you want to go and hike to the bridge, you can't do that on your own. But if you want to pay the bungee jumping company $110, they will bring you on a guided hike to the bridge through that closure area, which is closed for everyone else in the world. And you can go experience that hike and the bridge. Now, it's an interesting one. Obviously, there's feathers ruffled because why is it closed for some people? Is it dangerous? You know, obviously not dangerous if people are hiking through there, but why is it closed for us but not for them if you pay for it? On the other hand, you have a private landowner in the middle and it's a business and they'd probably go out of business if that area was closed off to them. So a lot of different angles here. This has been sort of brewing for the last couple months, and there was an article that came out online. I'll post a link to that and everything else I talked about under the video if you want to check it out. But coincidentally, I got contacted last week from the owner of the Bridge to Nowhere who wanted me to clarify that the land on the bridge is not leased from the Forest Service. I mentioned that it was leased in an earlier video. I made a mistake. It is owned by by the Bungee, I think Bungee America, whatever the company is. They own that land. So they're the private landowners. I also wanted to share this with you, which was a part of the email. Basically, you can read on the screen, but they've welcomed hikers there. So if you're a hiker, you can go and visit the bridge, even though it's private. People are not being respectful. They're not following the signs. You can't fly drones there, things like that. I see people flying drones all the time. And they want you to be respectful. And if you can't be respectful, they're going to start charging or they're going to close it off to hikers. Let me know in the comments what you think. This is an interesting one. And I could see it from all these different angles. And there's people who don't want the bungee jumping company to be there at all, think that should be gone. And there's been fights between different parties. So you can read in the article if you want to dig a little bit deeper, but it's definitely an interesting one. Also, if you're visiting Angeles National Forest, just a heads up, I've heard from multiple people that the ticketing is more aggressive if you don't have your parking pass displayed. So either an Adventure the Pass or an America the Beautiful Pass or one of those types of passes needs to be displayed. They used to give out a $5 ticket. Now I hear they're giving out $100 tickets with a $30 processing fee. So, our public lands, there we go. But anyway, just a heads up if you're in Angeles National Forest. There's a guy named Mark Gurman who writes for Bloomberg. He does a weekly Apple rumors share, and they're usually pretty reliable. And one of the things that was really interesting and exciting was that he said the new Apple Watch Ultra 3, this is not it, this is a 2, will have satellite communications built in. Now, some of you have said, well, so what? Because I always have my phone with me and my iPhone has satellite. And others have said, I like to trail run. I like to leave the phone behind. Either way you look at it, I think it's cool that there's going to be satellite communications in a watch. It's something we've, talked about for a long time. And quite frankly, I wish Garmin would have come out with this earlier. Maybe even if the antenna was directional on the Garmin. I don't know. Maybe Garmin will come out with it. I have no insider information aside from what I read from these things, but that's an exciting one. If you're a Gaia GPS user, they added photo waypoints to your track, but it's web only for whatever reason. And they've also got rid of the Esri World imagery because of a rights issue. They can't store it offline for more than 3 days. So that's not available, but there are other satellite layers available on Gaia. And even though Gaia's had its problems lately, the maps on Gaia for me are just like the best. The cartography is just the best on Gaia. So do what you will. I'm also checking out Goat Maps. Thank you for everyone who recommended it. It was started by people who used to work at Gaia GPS. So I'm hiking with that now, and I will report on that shortly. If you are a Garmin user, they released a bunch of different firmware updates for the Fenix 8, Fenix 7, Epix Pro, also Garmin Mini 2. I'll put links to this underneath as well. If you are a T-Mobile user in the United States, you can sign up for Starlink beta messages. So if you want to do messaging over satellites without any kind of special phone, you can sign up for the beta. This will be coming out to everyone, I think, in the near future, but you can get early access if you sign up for this beta. I'm not sure how it works, if it's a list or whatever. I reached out to the media department of T-Mobile to see if I could have access, and they said no. So I'm on this beta list too. And if you want to know about this when it comes out, on my Patreon page, I post all of these news items in real time into basically a chat feed where you can get it. So if you want to get the news as it arises, join me on Patreon, and you will have access to that, as well as the ability to ask me questions and all that fun stuff. And speaking of Starlink, there's a new development from the European Space Agency. They're basically doing their own version of Starlink. It's called Iris Squared. They're launching between now and 2030 170 low Earth orbit satellites that will offer essentially similar technology to what Starlink has. When I find out more details on what this will be exactly, I will share them with you. But I thought it was cool that that's happening. And it's a pretty aggressive timeline given we're launching satellites into space. And since we're in Europe, I saw that the founder of the fashion chain Mango lost his life. He was an older guy. He was hiking, I think it's Spain, and in a cave area, he slipped and fell and lost his life. And as long as we're talking about slipping and falling, it is the beginning of winter here in the United States and the Northern Hemisphere. So please be careful. I've already seen search and rescue teams reporting on winter-related accidents and offering, cautions to be more careful in the winter. Las Vegas Search and Rescue shared this. Some people hiking Mount Charleston, there was, I think, multiple people slipped and fell on the trail and had to be rescued. There was somebody who did a 14er in Colorado and got too cold for them and they needed help. But luckily, they did a couple things right. They left a plan with their friends and family who then contacted search and rescue. They also had a flashlight. Obviously, they didn't have enough warmth or layers to do this, and they probably didn't have a satellite communicator to signal for help as well. But good that that was a happy ending. And I've said it before, and I know people get bent out of shape, but you got to be careful when you're hiking in the mountains in the winter. Not the same as the summer. Your margin of error if you slip on the trail is a lot less than it would be if there wasn't snow and ice there. And that's all I'll say. I'm not telling you what to do, but if you're not familiar with hiking in the mountains in the winter, it can be more dangerous than the summer. And again, I'll put links to these search and rescue stories underneath so you can check it out and maybe learn something from them. I did see an interesting search and rescue story. There is a kid tracker called, what is it called? GeoBit, a kid tracker. And there was a parent hiking with their kid who had one of these trackers on them, and search and rescue was able to find them using this kid tracker. It's probably a good product idea for something like this for adults and for the outdoors. I'm sure something like this will arise at some point as satellite connectivity becomes more ubiquitous, as they say. If you want to hike in a park for free, the Park Service just announced their free days for 2025. And I saw that Rivian is opening a charging station by the Joshua Tree Visitor Center, and evidently it is open for anyone with an EV. And there's a little coffee bar inside. Looks pretty cool. I don't have a Rivian or an EV, but I appreciate that it's there, and I think it's probably going to be handy for some folks. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. Thank you for everyone who supports this channel. I couldn't do it without you, and anything you want me to be aware of in terms of hiking news or outdoors news, just leave me a comment and I will check it out. All right, guys, stay safe, and I'll see you out on the trails.